Good evening. Thank you for joining us. I'd like to welcome you all to the virtual event hosted by the Carbondale Public Library and presented by Land of Lincoln Legal Aid. This evening we'll be talking about expungement and sealing of your Illinois criminal record. And I'd like to begin by just covering a couple of housekeeping items. I wanted to let you know that we will not be able to answer case-specific questions this evening. You are welcome to submit general questions and comments to the Facebook live stream and to Zoom chats. And there will be an opportunity later in the presentation where you can sign up to receive individualized services through Land of Lincoln with your expungement and sealing matter. But again, please refrain from talking about any personal issues that you may have. So today I will be presenting along with Senior Supervising Staff Attorney Andrew Weaver, and my name is Nicolette Dolan. I am a paralegal with Land of Lincoln. I've been with the organization since 2017. And Land of Lincoln is a state nonprofit organization. We cover Central and Southern Illinois. And we serve low-income residents and seniors. And the mission of Land of Lincoln is to provide low-income residents and seniors with high-quality legal services in order to obtain and maintain their basic human needs. Land of Lincoln serves 65 counties in Illinois. Our services range from providing brief phone advice to help folks resolve issues on their own, to providing full service court representation in court hearings and administrative hearings. We do only specialize in civil cases. Nothing criminal outside of what we're doing with expungement and sealing, so we can't represent anyone in criminal defense or anything like that. There is no charge for our services, although you do need to apply. As I said, our services are reserved for low-income individuals. We don't do anything with personal injury, malpractice, or workers' compensation either. So this presentation specifically is intended to give you a broad overview of expunging and sealing criminal records in the state of Illinois, and it's for the current time period in 2020. Laws change, and so if you're viewing this presentation at a later date, please be advised that the laws may not still apply. This presentation is also not intended to represent an attorney's evaluation of your case. There are a lot of intricacies about the law and the way that records are reported. So it is best to speak with an attorney about your specific situation. This presentation cannot represent their expertise. So without further ado, I would like to introduce the attorney that is going to be providing advice and instruction this evening for you, and that is Senior Supervising Attorney Andrew Weaver. He has been with Land of Lincoln since 2003 when he graduated from SIUC School of Law and entered the Illinois Bar. He's been doing expungement and sealings for Land of Lincoln since 2017. And he now supervises that program along with our medical legal partnership. So I will turn it over to Andrew so he can talk about the importance of this program and what exactly is involved.
Thank you, Nicolette. I am very happy to be here tonight to talk to everyone about sealings and expungements. And so welcome, and we hope that this presentation can give you that broad overview that Nicolette talked about and can help all of you kind of understand the importance of sealing and expunging of criminal records. So we're going to first get started with talking about public records as it relates to your criminal cases. And the first thing I want you guys to know is that we are only talking about Illinois criminal records tonight. We're not talking about criminal records for any other state, and we are not talking about federal records. Land of Lincoln only practices law in the state of Illinois. And so that is the area of law that we will be talking about tonight, is the sealing and expungement law as it relates to Illinois. However, you should be aware that if you have pending charges or convictions in any other state or federally, then that can impact your eligibility to seal or expunge your records in the state of Illinois. So, the other thing that you need to know is that criminal records are public. This means that they are available both in person, if you go to the courthouse, and online. They are part of a public record. So if someone goes to the courthouse and says, I want to see all of the records on Andrew Weaver, then those records from the circuit clerk's office can be provided. This is without your consent, and frankly, it's also without your knowledge. This also would include cases that maybe you were acquitted in or found not guilty, or cases that were dismissed. They all remain part of that record. So I want to talk tonight about how that record is created and how that process works. So the first thing we're going to talk about is your first interaction with the justice system. So we're going to just generally use the term that you are arrested. However, this could also mean that it's a simple traffic stop. You may not actually get arrested, but it could just be you're interacting with a police officer in some sort of formal way, all right? That you've been pulled over under suspicion of maybe speeding or some other matter, and you've started talking with that officer, all right? So once that interaction takes place, it can happen with all sorts of different agencies. It may be your local police department, your village police department. It could be the Illinois State Police. It could be the FBI. It could even be the SIU police department. After that interaction, one of two things are going to happen. The first is that you're going to be released without any charges. So what this basically means is that interaction with the law enforcement officer did not result in maybe a ticket, or it did not result in you having to appear in court because of some formal charges that get filed. That entire interaction does get reported to the Illinois State Police, and that is what would start your rap sheet from the Illinois State Police in regard to this incident. The other thing that may happen is that you do get a ticket, or you get some sort of charge of some form of a violation, some criminal offense. And that means that you are now charged in a circuit court and involved in that circuit court process. That charge gets reported to the Illinois State Police, and it goes online. Most of the time, charges, including traffic tickets or felonies or misdemeanors, when they go to the Illinois State Police rap sheet, they also, when they become part of the circuit court, they also get posted online. Generally in Southern Illinois, That is on a website called Judici, where all the counties post most of their cases. But throughout the state, most circuit clerks use Judici, but some also have their own website that they use. So as you go through that circuit court process, most of the records are electronic today, which means that judges are creating their own electronic record when they have interactions with you or the prosecutor or the defense attorney in regard to that process. Those interactions are also usually on that Judici website, or at least some form of notes created by the court. Eventually, though, that process will end. And typically that will end in either the case gets dismissed or you are acquitted or found not guilty, or you're found guilty and there's some kind of conviction and likely some kind of a sentence. Again, those outcomes get posted to Judici and your Illinois State Police rap sheet, including the sentence or the prison term that you may have would also get posted to the Illinois State Police rap sheet. And what's really important to notice here is that those dismissed cases, those cases where you are not found guilty, are also reported to the Illinois State Police, and they are online. So that's how the record gets created. You can see it's a pretty complex system. And at multiple points during that process, your record gets created and gets added to as time goes on. So, why does this matter? So, who cares about criminal records? So, a lot of people. Employers care. Employers may deny employment because of your criminal history. This may be through a formal background check where you give someone permission and they actually get your Illinois State Police rap sheet. But because Judici and other online sources are public, they can also just go online and search your name and try to find out what's going on. We talked about those dismissed cases. The general public may not understand that that case was dismissed and you were not found guilty. So that's the reason why to get rid of that record. Other people may care as well, like landlords. You may be denied housing because of your criminal record when you apply to housing, or if you are, wanting to enter into a lease agreement with a private attorney, a private landlord, and so your criminal record may become important then. If you're applying to school, let's say you're applying to grad school or law school. When I applied to law school, I had to provide a background check. And so if you have a criminal record, that background check could prevent you from entering law school. It could also prevent you from getting a professional license, like an attorney's license. Once again, when I applied to take the bar exam, I had to do another background check. If you want to be a CNA or an RN, a lot of times those professions require background checks. All of this information is out there and will remain out there unless you do something about it. Also, government agencies, potential business partners or roommates may also be getting online and checking Judici, or just anyone that you know. The general public has access to these materials, and they may take a look at those. So, how do you protect yourself? So, we protect ourselves by attempting to expunge and seal our records. So as we talk tonight about expunging and sealing, when I say the word expunge, I'm really talking about physically destroying a record, or that the record gets returned to the defendant. That's a very simplistic definition of expungement, but that's generally what it means. To seal a record means that we hide it, that it is, the file is maintained, but it is no longer available to the public. Both expunging and sealing mean that if a record is expunged or a record is sealed, the general public will no longer have access. So if someone goes, if I've sealed my record and someone goes into the courthouse and asks to see the record for Andrew Weaver, the clerk will act as though it doesn't exist. So what's the benefits to this process? First off, this is the only way that you can clear your criminal record is through the expunging and sealing process that the Illinois legislature has developed. So it's your best and only option to try to remove your criminal record from your background. If you do so, this can lead to better housing opportunities, better job opportunities, better educational opportunities. And as I said before, it will be removed from your physical record, the Illinois State Police rap sheet, and online sources. Only with your permission for a fingerprint background check could some of those matters still be visible to certain employers. So that's just a brief introduction to sealing and expungement. And now Nicolette is going to discuss some matters that you need to be aware of as we move forward.
So first off, what you need to know is that you can not be connected to the justice system in any way. That means that you cannot be serving out your sentence. If you're still on probation or parole, if you are still on court supervision, you can't do anything right now. You cannot have any pending cases that you have to go back to court and see a judge for anything other than a minor traffic ticket. And when I say minor traffic, I mean like speeding or parking. Nothing federal pending or still serving out any federal charges. And you can't have anything pending in another state. Now, I know Andrew said we're only talking about Illinois records, but if you have something going on in another state, you have to take care of that first before you're eligible in Illinois. So those are just some of those key things that you have to know right off the bat. Another thing to know are some of the cases that cannot be expunged or sealed. So most traffic cases like parking and speeding, no insurance, those types of cases we can't get rid of. Some of the more serious things like driving on suspended license or speeding so fast that it's a misdemeanor, then those things might be, but minor traffic we can't get rid of. Civil cases, so order of protection cases are civil, and that is something we cannot address. If you've been married a lot of times and you have a lot of divorces, unfortunately, we can't clear those for you. Petty violations. And what I mean by that are things like you didn't mow your grass, so you got a ticket from the city. Or you played your music too loud and you got a ticket for that. Those things are considered petty. So we can't remove those from your record. They really shouldn't affect you very much in what you're trying to do in life. And lastly, federal cases. Unfortunately, there's nothing that we can do about those. So if federal also includes things that would be bankruptcies or other things that don't fit into civil or criminal, they're somewhere else out there and we can't do anything with those either. But it's good to know that things change. And although the laws might not allow for some of those things now, in the future, who knows? Just this year, with the legalization of marijuana, there were new opportunities to get rid of cases that otherwise we couldn't address or we could only seal. So now cannabis convictions that would only be sealed can now be completely destroyed and removed from your record by expunging them. And that's a new development in the law. These things change And so maybe in the future, we'll be able to address some of those other types of cases, but for now, we're not able to. So I'm going to turn it back over to Andrew so he can get into the details about what can be expunged and what can be sealed now that I've told you what can't. Andrew?
Thanks, Nicolette. So before I move on, as Nicolette just said, she was talking about what can't be done. And I will also be addressing some of those matters of things that we cannot successfully seal and so, but I want to preface that first by saying, if you are one of the people watching right now and you are thinking, I can't get rid of this or I can't get rid of that, don't be discouraged. There are always nuances in the law. And as we said at the beginning of this presentation, this is a very high-level view of this process, and it doesn't replace speaking to an attorney about your case specifically. So just remember that as we talk about matters that seem discouraging as we move forward. As Nicolette just talking about cannabis and marijuana, about the law changing. Just a few years ago, this procedure and the amount that could be sealed, the types of cases that could be sealed were very, very limited. But the legislature expanded that about 3 years ago to include a lot more people. And so that's another reason not to be discouraged. Illinois has one of the most expansive laws in the country regarding sealing and expunging of records. And so many, many people are eligible for this process. So what can be expunged? So we're talking about non-convictions, okay? That's one of those words that attorneys like to make up, non-conviction. So what does that mean? So that means you were acquitted, found not guilty. The case was dismissed. You were released without being charged. So we were talking earlier about maybe getting an interaction with a law enforcement officer, and you never had to go to court. You were never actually formally charged. That is something that could be expunged. Or the case is noli pros. So that basically means it's kind of like a dismissal where the state's attorney chooses not to prosecute you, but the difference is those charges could potentially come back. A conviction that is vacated or reversed. So that means you were convicted of something, but perhaps later on, another judge or a different court may have decided that that conviction was wrong for some reason. So they vacate it or reverse it, which basically means the conviction no longer applies to you, and that is something that could be expunged. And so but all of those things that we just talked about mean that you were not convicted. But again, it's still part of your record, and it is up to you to take the step to ask the court to remove it from your record. Orders of supervision successfully completed. So this means that you have been given a sentence of supervision. And when you complete that supervision, it is deemed to be not a conviction. So if you pay your fines and you pay your fees and you serve your time, you can then ask to expunge that. Very similar to supervision is what people refer to as task probation or first offender probation. A lot of times this is in regard to drug charges and convictions. If you complete that process, then it is also not a conviction and you can ask that you can expunge it. However, you cannot expunge supervision for DUI or reckless driving or any sex offenses involving a minor. So, what can be sealed? A lot. All right. So now we're talking about convictions. All right. Misdemeanor convictions and felony convictions. What is really important to remember here is that when we evaluate your record, what we are looking at is what the conviction is, not what the original charge was. So let me give you an example. You are charged with domestic battery. But through the course of maybe being represented by a public defender or some sort of negotiated plea, you actually agree that you committed battery. So you are found guilty of battery. And domestic battery is no longer the charge. What that means is that I'm looking to see if battery is eligible to be sealed, a conviction for battery. I am not concerned about the original charge of domestic battery. And the good news is for you, battery is eligible to be sealed, but domestic battery is not. And we'll get in more to that in a few moments. So excluded offenses. So this list looks pretty long, but in reality, it's not, okay? And this is much, much shorter than it was 3 years ago. So generally, and again, we are talking about convictions here, all right? If you were charged with any of these offenses and those charges were dismissed or you were found not guilty, those matters are eligible to be expunged. I'm talking now about convictions. If you were convicted of any of these offenses, we cannot seal those matters. So we're talking about DUI and reckless driving, basically domestic battery, sex offenses, matters where you would have to register on some sort of public registry, crimes against animals, and violations of an order of protection. So the list that we have there is set out a little bit more detailed than the kind of broad overview that I just gave. But again, there are not that many categories at this point that are no longer eligible. And if you've been convicted of one of these offenses and have additional offenses for matters that are eligible, a conviction under one of these offenses does not exclude you from asking to have the rest of your record sealed or expunged. Okay? So the next step is waiting periods. So waiting periods are really kind of where it's at when we look at this. Because most of the people that we evaluate their records for, most of them have eligible records, meaning that they have offenses that they've been convicted of that are not excluded. However, in order to move on with this process, you have to wait after your conviction and your sentence before the court will permit you to ask that your record be sealed. Why do we have this in place? Well, generally, as Nicolette said earlier, you can't be justice involved any longer in regard to this process. Because what the court is looking for is a person that is no longer involved in the justice system and hasn't been involved in the justice system for several years. All right? Basically between 2 and 5 years is what the court is looking at after they complete their last sentence. And the reason behind that is the people who have not been involved in the justice system for about that amount of time are not likely to commit an offense in the future that would result in a conviction. And so that's why waiting periods are in place. Now, if you're acquitted of a charge, if the charge is dismissed, like we've been talking about throughout the evening, there are no waiting periods for that. If you go to court one day and the judge says charges are dismissed against you, the very next day or that day, you could petition the court and ask them to expunge that record. Okay? So no waiting period. If you have special probation, that task probation that we've talked about, there's a 5-year waiting period to expunge that after you've completed that probationary period. If you've successfully completed supervision, then you have to wait 2 years after you successfully completed that supervision. So that's for matters of expungement. The waiting period in regard to sealing is approximately 3 years for almost every conviction out there. And this includes misdemeanors and felonies, and it's 3 years after your last sentence. So let's talk about this for a minute, and then I'll give you an example, okay? So what we're talking about here is convictions, all of your convictions, no matter what jurisdiction you were convicted in. So we're going all the way back to the very beginning where we talked about how we only deal with Illinois law, but how convictions or criminal matters in other states or federally could impact your eligibility to seal your Illinois record. So if you have convictions in multiple counties in the state of Illinois, all of those convictions have to be reviewed for us to determine your waiting period. If you have convictions in other states, we have to discuss that with you because that can impact your waiting period. If you have a conviction in federal court, that can also impact your waiting period. Now notice I keep saying conviction, not dismissals. Cases that were dismissed or that you've been acquitted of do not impact your waiting periods. Waiting periods are based on the completion date of your last sentence in any jurisdiction. So if you are no longer justice involved, the case that I'm looking at to determine your waiting period is the last case that you ended your sentence in, no matter if that's a federal case, another state, or a case in Illinois in any county. So the examples that we have here to try to help out with this. You're arrested on December 24th, 2019. You go through the court process, and on February 14th, 2020, you are found guilty of theft, and you receive 2 years probation for that. You go through the probationary process, and you complete it successfully, and you are finished with probation on February 14th, 2022. This is a conviction. You have to wait 3 years after the date that you completed your last sentence. If this is your last sentence, then you're eligible to seal your record on February 14th, 2025. Let's say on the same day, December 24th, 2019, you are also arrested for domestic battery. And on February 14th, 2020, the judge dismisses that charge against you. Then you are eligible to expunge that domestic battery dismissal on February 14th, 2020, the same day that it was dismissed. And keep in mind here that domestic battery, if you were convicted, is not eligible to be sealed, but because it was dismissed, you can expunge it. So let's switch these two, okay? Let's say that instead of being convicted of theft, you were convicted of domestic battery with the same timeline. And this is your last sentence. That domestic battery case, even though it is not eligible to be sealed, is still used to determine your waiting period for all of your other cases. This is also something that can be relatively complex, and again, it's better to speak with an attorney about your waiting period. So now I'm going to turn it back over to Nicolette for her to talk about the court process.
So we've been talking about what is eligible and what's not eligible and how you know when you are ready to do this. So now I'd like to tell you what it is that we actually do to remove the records. So I have a short video for you that is an overview of the court process on expunging and sealing your record.
Land of Lincoln presents Criminal Records Expungement and Sealing, the court process for filing. Step 1. Research. Criminal records are researched online and requested from the county courthouse. A fingerprint background check may be required for thorough research. Step 2. Prepare legal documents. A petition or request is prepared along with the notice and a proposed order, which are signed and then filed with the circuit clerk in the county of record. If your record involves a drug-related felony, a drug test may be required. Documents are filed electronically with the court, and fees may apply if you don't qualify for a low-income waiver. The court sends notice to all legal officers and arresting agencies. Step 3. Objection period. Each agency or office has 60 days to file an objection indicating why the court shouldn't approve your request. After the 60-day objection period has passed, a court date is set. Step 4. Granting the order. At the court hearing, if there are no objections and the judge agrees to your request, the judge will sign the order for your records to be expunged and sealed accordingly. Step 5. The final step, removal of the record. The court order is sent to the Illinois State Police and arresting agencies. Each agency has 60 days to remove the records as ordered. And we did it. In about 6 months, when all goes well, we can complete the Illinois court process for filing an expungement and sealing case.
Okay, so a couple of things related to that video. Expunging and sealing is discretionary, So what does that mean? So a bit of a disclaimer here. There is a difference between Land of Lincoln saying that you qualify to have your record sealed or expunged and actually getting your record sealed and expunged, right? Even if a record is eligible to be expunged and sealed, whether that happens is up to the judge. The judge has a lot of discretion in making their decision whether to seal your record. There is no absolute right to expunging or sealing. For the most part, objections do not occur very often. The state's attorney is typically the person who would file the objection. If the state does object, though, to your request to clear your record, the judge can apply the factors that are listed above in regard to a hearing where you would be allowed to testify as to why it is important to seal this record. So the judge is going to potentially look at the strength of the evidence that supported your initial conviction, the reasons why the state's attorney wants to keep those records and to keep them public, how old you are, looking at your entire criminal record, and your employment history. The time since you were arrested for the charge and resulting in a conviction and the filing of your petition. So generally, the longer it is from the time that you were justice involved, the more likely it is the judge is going to seal those convictions. And then whatever adverse consequences that you may experience if the judge denies your request. So usually when I'm talking to clients and we have an objection that we have to deal with, we talk about how having this criminal record has impacted your life, what it has meant for you and your family, what you have had to do to overcome that record, whether or not you've been able to get a job, whether or not you've been able to get advancement at your job. If you've been denied jobs in the past, how often and what kind of jobs were they? Were you able to get a professional license? Were you denied getting into public housing, or were you denied something else that was specific to your criminal record? So what have you done in regard to that? What has been your process to try to overcome those matters? What type of public involvement have you had? What kind of jobs have you had, and what kind of record of keeping that employment have you had? And then how will clearing up this record, getting rid of these matters, impact your life moving forward? Basically, all those things we just talked about that has made your life difficult because you've had this record would be eliminated potentially. And you being able to get a job or get advanced in the current job you have, what does that mean for you? What does it mean for your family? It means more money in your pocket. It could mean health care. It could mean all kinds of things, a better education, so then you can get a better job, getting into more stable housing, things of that nature. Those are the types of things that judges need to hear when you're dealing with an objection. So, moving forward, this is basically one and done regarding sealing. Expunging is different. There's really no time, there's really no issue regarding expunging cases at any time, okay? But if you're talking about convictions, when you seal your convictions, if you commit a felony in the future and you've already sealed your record and you were convicted of that felony in the future, the likelihood is the court is going to unseal everything that you've sealed. And you will never be permitted to ask the court to seal those records again, because this goes all the way back to those waiting periods. The court is expecting that you will no longer be justice involved. You will not get convictions in the future. Therefore, if you do, the relief that you receive, the sealing of those records, is going to be taken away, most likely, and you will not be eligible to seal future convictions. So that is basically sealing and expungement in Illinois. And now Nicolette is going to tell you how you can apply for services at Land of Lincoln.
Thanks, Andrew. This is a service that we provide year-round, and you can contact us at any time to apply for services. But we do have a unique opportunity for you to kind of cut through the red tape and get your application reviewed faster by submitting your basic information in the Google form that Kayla has put in the chat. And it's also here on the slide. It's that top hyperlink there. You can just copy and paste that in, and it'll take you directly to the sign-up sheet where you can give us your information, and then we will call you to go over what you think that you have on your record, and also to ask you some questions to make sure you qualify for service. Because like I said, for Land of Lincoln, you have to be low income to receive our assistance with this process. But if you are not low income and you would still like help with this, I would encourage you to still submit your information on the form, and we can give you more pointed directions on how you can do it yourself, or where you might turn to hire a private attorney if you're so fortunate to have funds to do that. But there are some really great websites and resources out there for people to do it themselves. So if you think that's the route that you're going to go, still, put your name on the list, and we can provide you with those resources so you can do it if you're not low income. Otherwise, we will need to ask about your household income and the names of everyone in your home to make sure we don't have any conflict with any other current clients that we're serving or recently served. And if all that checks out, then we will start working on your case. We have funds to get everyone fingerprinted, so we can do a very thorough background search. And if you have things in other counties outside of our service territory, that's not a problem either. We can refer you to other legal aids within the state of Illinois. We might even be able to tell you about other states, but we can't guarantee that they're going to be able to expunge or seal. But anyway, Illinois, we got you covered. If we can't help you, we will try to point you in the right direction of where you can get this help. So submit it to the form. If you prefer to call us at a later time and date, you can call us at the hotline number that's on the slide. That is a way that you can speak with an attorney there on the phone. They'll still need to, do some research and everything like that, but you can call the hotline. And if you wait around and you don't submit your name through the form, the hotline will be your only option, because we're only going to take, I think we said 75 cases through the form. So, but it's not over with. You can still get help. You'll just need to call the hotline. I did put our address on the slide for our physical location in Carbondale. We are closed to the public right now because of COVID. So you won't get real far if you come here in person, but you can give us a call, and you can also apply through our website at a later date if you miss out on the form. So again, put your name in the form and we will get a hold of you to see if you qualify and try to give you assistance with expunging and sealing. And then we do have time for questions, and Kayla's been monitoring those. So I'm going to ask Kayla if we have any questions that have came up.
Yeah, so right now we just have one question, but if anybody has got anything that they're wondering, they could put it either on the Zoom Q&A or on Facebook, comment there. So the one question that we have right now says, if you have a case or record expunged, are you legally obligated to select yes on job applications that ask if you have a criminal history?
That is a great question. I'm going to defer to the attorney on that one.
So first, I'm going to say that I'm not an employment attorney, but and this question is a little bit complex because by selecting no, that you've not been convicted or have any other matters, then what that means is there's nothing out there. And so when we're finished with a case, we're very clear with our clients that the only thing that we were able to get rid of is what we knew of, what was there. And if you have convictions in other states that were not able to be dealt with, or if you have matters that were not eligible, those matters still exist. But if you have one case that you were convicted of something and you were able to seal that, then the Illinois Human Rights Act says that you do not have to disclose that during the application process for a job. So that's kind of a long answer, but and again, I always encourage you to speak with an attorney about specifics in regard to those matters.
And so it looks like that's the only question we have at this point.
Well, we definitely want to hear from you with those very specific personal questions that we asked you not to speak of right now. So give us a call, submit your information through the form, and we can do our best to help you with whatever it is that you have on your record. And thank you all for coming and taking time out of your evening to learn about this. And we appreciate you tuning in, and it will be recorded and posted through the library and probably through Land of Lincoln some way. So you can refer back to it and you can tell other people about it that might have missed out.